Val Nicholas has had an incredibly impressive career. He spent nearly 25 years with NBC News and now is the Senior Vice President and Creative Director with Summit Media Corporation. But he has a few other projects in motion. He's co-owner of Eyes on Target Productions, and the company has produced a documentary called 10 Weeks, airing now on Roku. He's also a founder and principal in Second Thought Productions and a strategy executive with Kurtco, a podcast company which is about to launch an immersive Dolby Surround sci-fi scripted podcast called Solar, with stars like Helen Hunt and Alan Cumming headlining the all-star cast. Val has received an impressive 24 Emmy nominations and has won 7 Emmys. He was the developer and producer of Snap.com, a commercial spot, which also won the prestigious International Best Commercial in the World Award and Adweek's Best Commercial of the Year. I know that Eddie knows a lot about you, and I've stalked you, so I know a lot of all your bio details, but tell me a little bit about your career and a little bit about, how you chose this as a profession.
Well, I didn't really choose it as a profession. It chose me. I was in the military. I went into the Army. I was in armor. I was a tank guy. Wow. And when I came out of the Army, I found out there were no jobs for tank commanders in civilian life. So I had to find something else to do. And I asked my friend Mike, I said, Mike, what are you going to do? And Mike said, well, I'm going to be an electrical engineer. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I got into college and I found out it was all math. And I'm terrible at math. I'm a creative guy, but I'm not a math guy. And so all the doors started closing on me in college very quickly in the first semester. So I had to do something else. And second semester, I took one of everything that might be interesting. I took pre-law, pre-med, journalism, anthropology, everything I could think of. Turned out I could write. So I got onto the college paper. The woman who was running the paper, Dr. Jean Stevens, knew I was on the GI Bill. I was working 2 jobs, and I wasn't flush with money. So she would send us out for every scholarship that came up. And one day she walked in, I was on deadline, and she said, look, there's a scholarship at the local TV station. It's $10,000 and it's a paid summer job. And I said, look, I don't have a TV. I don't watch TV. I don't like TV. I'm going to be on the New York Times. And she leaned over my desk and she said, $10,000 paid job. Get your ass over there. So I went over and I got the scholarship and I got the job. And the first day I walked in, the program director runs into my office and says, listen, I know you're an intern. I know it's your first day, but the woman who ran this department quit on Friday. So I need you to learn this department for the summer and run it until I can get somebody else in here. Wow. And since I didn't really care much about television, I was like, yeah, sure. Who cares? If I fail, I don't want to be here anyway. And so what ended up happening was immediately I had to produce 4 or 5 public service shows, half-hour shows. I'd never produced anything in my life. I'd never had a TV class. I never did any of that stuff. But I think the thing about growing up in this era, you instinctively understand television. You've watched so much of it that it's pounded into you how formats and stuff work. You don't even realize that you know all of this stuff. So I had to do that. I had to do all of the public service announcements. I had to produce those, and I had to run the internship program as an intern. And so what was fun?
You're also going to manage all the interns.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was the public service shows were on the weekend, and they were half-hour shows. There was one Black show, Latino show, clergy show, so there were all of these public service kind of shows, and they were all half hours. And so what ended up happening was I didn't know how to do them, so I did them the way I thought they should be done, and because I didn't know the rules. And so that was the best thing that happened to me because I started winning awards and stuff.
Wow.
You know, and at the end of the summer, I had picked up a job writing high school sports for the Sacramento Union. And the station manager came back and said, "Oh, so you want to stay?" And I said, "Well, I got this job with the union." And he said, "Well, we'll pay you whatever they're going to pay you." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm still in college. I need flexible hours." And he said, "Yeah, we'll give you flexible hours. What else?" And I said, "Well, okay, I can't argue with that."
Negotiations.
And then, and that's how I got into television. And then once I was there, I just fell in love with it. It was just like I was made for this. And it got to the point where I was producing everything that I could get my hands on. You know, live shows, morning talk shows, news shows, live events, football games. If it needed to be produced, promos, campaigns, everything. If it needed to be produced, I was going to be the first one to raise my hand. Because of those public service shows, they had a morning talk show that they were going to start. And the woman that they'd hired from Baltimore to come to Sacramento to produce it decided 10 days before the show, she's not coming. And so the owner and the general manager called me into the office and they said, "Look, the owner says, I don't think you're ready for this, but I've seen some of the stuff that you've done. And so I'm going to make an offer to you for this show. But you got to know, if you are not successful, I'm going to fire you." And he said,
Nice.
And he said, "So you got till Monday to tell me." And I said, "I don't need till Monday. Give me the show right now."
Wow.
And we launched the show, and the first year we won an Emmy. So, you know, so after that, it was, you know, it was like full speed ahead. And it got to the point where I was producing so much stuff that one year, this was before direct deposit, I was using direct deposit. They were still sending me checks. And the accounting department calls me and says, "Hey, we're going through the records and there's 2 checks you didn't cash this year." And I was like, "What? No, there's no way." And I went out to my car where I used to throw the stubs in my glove compartment, and I pulled all that stuff out. And sure enough, there were 2 uncashed checks.
Nice.
And that just said everything about, you know, the love for television, that it was more important than the money to me.
Wow. Yeah.
But that was my start. And then moving forward, I was picking up all sorts of Northern California awards for advertising and promotion, you know, commercial work and promotional campaigns. And NBC started to notice. And so they were trying to recruit me down there. And I believe the owner of my company, because I became his kind of go-to guy for anything they needed to produce, I believe he called them and told them to back the hell off. And so
Stay away.
So like five years later, he was getting ready to just sell the company. And he calls me in and he says, "Look, Val, I'm not sure you're going to like it here now because you're a builder. And I'm not in a building mode right now. I'm in a, you know, cutting mode so I can sell this company." And so I called my pals in Vince Manzi and John Miller at NBC Entertainment in Burbank. And, you know, a month later, I was in Burbank. And so I did a lot of advertising and promotion work there. I did radio work. I did pretty much whatever Vince and John needed. And fortunately enough, I got this huge campaign that everybody in town wanted to direct. And it was funny because this, you know, usually our campaigns cost $200,000, $300,000 to produce. And my scripts were at 1.2 million bucks. And my friend said, "Don't even take it to them. They're going to chew you up. They're going to eat you alive for that kind of script, that money." And I said, "You know what? I'm just going to take it in and see what happens." So I took it in. They read the script. They went crazy. And I said, "But Vince, listen, this thing's going to cost at least $1.2 million to produce." And he goes, "Fine, I'll find the money."
Wow.
And so we produced that thing. And this was the first year the National Emmys had a category for best commercial, and we were up against all of the big ad agencies across the globe, everybody, and we won. And I remember Vince jumping over me to get to the stage. He literally jumped over me and was running down the aisle before I could even get out of my seat. So by the time I got to the microphone, he was already on it, you know, thanking the Academy and whatnot. And
you're like, hello.
And so after that, I was trying to get to vice president, and there were like 7 people in front of me, and I understood that you know, that's going to take me 10 years, you know, for all those people to get vice president and then me. And I said, yeah, I don't have that kind of time. So I had a friend at ABC who said, oh God, I need you over here, you know, and we'll pay you all of this, and we'll make you vice president, and we'll pay you more money than you have ever had, and you'll have office in New York, and one in Hollywood, and one on the Disney lot, and you'll have car service. And I was like, okay. So I went over there, but at that time it was being run by people who just screamed. They were screamers. You go into any meeting and people be screaming at each other and spit coming out of their mouth. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't stand here and scream at people. That's not me. Just tell me what you want me to produce and I'll get it done. But I'm not going to have a screaming fight with you.
You're like, I'm a hugger, not a screamer.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to do the work, you know, and they were all about their power base. And I had been sent in there because all of the different parts of ABC had their own promotion department and their own promotion money. And so they were like these little fiefdoms all over ABC. And I was in there to take a big sword and chop down these walls and make them all work together. And of course, nobody wanted to do that. So I was a well-hated guy, and all of a sudden my sponsors are gone, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. No. And so I knew I had to get out of there, and so I came crawling back to John and Vince at NBC, and I said, can I come back? And they were like, yeah, you can come back, but only if you go for 2 years to New York and clean up MSNBC's marketing. Wow. You can do that and you can come back. And I said, okay, that's a good deal. But before I left ABC, you know, that big sign in Times Square, the giant one with all the moving stuff, sure. That was one of the things. I was vice president of special projects. And so that was one of the special projects. And I decided on Christmas Eve before I left, because I was leaving in January, that I would use that sign to propose to my wife.
Oh,
because you know, what were they going to do? Fire me? I was leaving anyway. So I talked to the art department and all this stuff, and we did this big presentation deal. And we were living she was living in Westchester, and so I said, you know, I got to go into the city. There's something wrong with the sign. And she says, it's Christmas Eve. I said, yeah, we'll just go and we'll come back. You know, we'll still be here for dinner with your family. And so we get there, and my sign guy, the guy who ran the sign, was out there, and he's going, yeah, the thing glitches about 3 o'clock. You know, it's about 5 minutes. It'll start glitching. And what I had done was I talked to my friends at MTV across the street, and they turned the cameras to the middle of Times Square. And then the guy who ran the sign, his father was there with a camera dressed as a tourist. And every time, every time she wasn't looking, he just started taking some pictures. And so the thing comes up, and it's, you know, her face pops up, and all of this stuff starts happening, and all this prose that I had written. And at the end, it said, so risking tremendous amounts of public humiliation, will you marry me? And when she turned around, I had the ring.
Wow.
And it was funny because that guy that was dressed as a tourist, he said, yeah, I bought 2 bottles here. I brought a bottle of champagne if she said yes, and I brought you a bottle of Jack Daniels if she said no.
You're like, I'll take both. Yeah.
You know, I went to MSNBC, and then from there I went to NBC News, and from there I decided at a certain point I was getting old enough that if I didn't, I always wanted to do my own thing, and if I didn't, when was I going to do it? You know, when I was 70, 80 years old, nah, I got to make a move, and I was pretty comfortable. And my old guy who owned that company, who he sold a broadcast company, decided to get back into it. He'd been running racehorses for a long time, and he was about 80 years old. And he calls me and he said, and I'd always told him, you know, if you ever need me, I don't care what I'm doing, I'll drop it and I'll come work for you. And he said, hey, you know, I got tired of running racehorses, so I just spent $200 or $300 million buying a bunch of radio stations. I need a creative director. And I said, yeah, okay, when do you need me? And so I went back to work with him. So I'm a senior vice president of a group called Summit Media Corporation. I have two production companies. One is Eyes on Target Productions, and we just launched a show called 10 Weeks on the Roku channel. Originally, it was supposed to be on Quibi, and I had worked, I teamed up with Blumhouse to produce it, and of course, Quibi went under. Fortunately, I got paid before it went under, but Roku picked it up and ran it. And my other company is called Second Thought Productions with some friends of mine, including Vince Manzi from NBC, my old boss. And we've got, he's a very good friend of David Zaslav, so we've got some pitches into Discovery, you know, and their Warner Media thing. So we'll see what happens with that. But I remember with John, when I won that that first Best Commercial Emmy, I was at NBC at the time, but John was at Santa Anita. I think he was at the racetrack, and I called him and I said, listen, can I come and see you? And he said, yeah, come to the racetrack. Come for breakfast. And I said, okay. I came there, and he was there with a bunch of his billionaire cronies. And I said, John, for all of these years, you have put your money where my mouth is. And we've all won awards, and we've done all of this stuff, and you've never got any of that stuff. So I reached under the table and I pulled out my Emmy, and I put it on the table, and I said, John, that's yours. Oh. And for the rest of the day, he had it in the back of his the trunk of his car, and he'd call over like jockeys and everybody, look what he gave me. Look at what he gave me. And that's how close we were, and that's why I went back to work for him. So that's what I'm doing now. I have the two production companies. I'm working for Summit, and I'm on 4 nonprofit boards, including one called Future Now with Eddie, and we're trying to get young people, you know, started in our business. The deal is you have to say yes. You have to learn to say yes to things, even things you don't really want to do. You just say yes to it because you're going to learn something from it. And more importantly, you're going to make connections. And this whole business is about who you're connected to. I don't, you know, when I was in LA, every waiter in the restaurant had a script in his back pocket, you know, but they weren't connected to anyone, so they weren't going anywhere. And so it's relationships are what drives this business. All of my production companies and all of that stuff, those are through lifelong relationships with people that I've done stuff for. The way I got from MSNBC to NBC News, they used to have GE, when they owned NBC, used to have this thing called the African American Forum. And so they send all the Black people to Baltimore for like 3 days. So it was like, you know, 2,000 or 3,000 Black people, and we would do Black people stuff and talk about things. And what ended up happening was at some screening, I ended up sitting next to Steve Kappas, who was the president of NBC News. And this was around when Obama was taking off. And so I said, Steve, hi, I'm Val Nicholas. I'm with MSNBC. Why don't we have a DVD or a download or something called Yes, We Can, the Barack Obama story? Because everybody loves this guy right now. And he said, yeah, you know what? We tried that. We tried it with Princess Di, and we tried it with the Pope. And that's a lot of work, and they sell about 300. And I said, well, look, I'm in MSNBC. We already have a Barack Obama hour. All I'd have to do is cut in some election stuff, and we could do it in a week for about $2,000. He goes, oh yeah, okay, go ahead and do it. I didn't work for him. He didn't know who I was. So we produced that thing. We got it out there. Instead of selling 300, it sold 100,000 in the first week at $19.99 on a $2,000 investment. And then it went on to sell millions. And so we followed that up with the inauguration of Barack Obama, and then we followed that up with inside the Obama White House, and for the holidays, the box set. and so once he saw the numbers, he called me and he said, look, I've been looking at the numbers on that Barack Obama thing. Why aren't you working for me? And that's how I made the jump from MSNBC to NBC News as a vice president there. And I just tell all the young people and everybody who's in the business, and people who are in the business who want to grow their careers, to start learning to say yes. Don't think about how much work it's going to be or what it's going to take away from you. And it's not the path you want to be on. I don't care. Say yes. Go do it. Because the best thing that's going to come out of that is you're going to meet some people who are going to go, wow, that person she's pretty good. I want her on my team. That happened to me 3 or 4 times in my career. One time was just in a meeting where I was just sitting there and we were all talking, and I noticed that me and this executive vice president were right on the same page. And afterwards, she came over and said, wow, you think like I think. And I said, yeah, I noticed that. And she said, you want to come work for me? But you got to say yes to the meetings. If you don't go to that meeting, somebody else is going to go to that meeting. Exactly. Somebody else is going to have a chance to have that interaction that can change your life. I remember when Jeff Zucker first took over NBC, he would have these town hall meetings in the Saturday Night Live studio in Studio 8H. And so everybody be sitting in there. And I remember the first time he did it, I sat front row center. And most people, when you ask them if they walk into an empty room and there's 300 seats and they're the first one in, where do they sit? All the way in the back. Yeah.
I do what you do. I go right in front.
So when he walked in, I stood up and I said, hi, Jeff, I'm Val Nicholas. I'm with NBC News. He says, hi, Val, nice to meet you. Second time he did it, I stood up and I said, hi, Jeff, Val Nicholas. He goes, NBC News? Yes. Yeah. Third time he walks in and he goes, hey, Val, how's NBC News? Yeah. Now we have 40,000 people, and he knows me by name and he knows what I do. And so I started sending him ideas, because now I established enough of him being being front of brain for him. And I would just send him ideas. Some of them he'd use, some of them he wouldn't. But I remember in one meeting, it was a affinity group meeting, and we were introducing ourselves around the table. And I said, I'm Val Nicholas, and I come up with an idea now and again. And he turned and looked at me. He turned and looked at me and goes, yes, you do.
In a lot of these interviews, we spoke to different people that instructed us how to send a pitch. And they were saying nowadays, a lot of people sending pitches via email, and the subject line has to be so interesting that you want to open it up, because a lot of people get 2,000, 3,000 emails a day. So I'm curious, when you were sending pitches to these big people, now you're big also, you know what I'm saying? Did you have interesting subject lines, or you just had that connection and no matter what you sent, they just...
No, I got to the point. I didn't send them a deck. I didn't send them 5 pages. I sent them like 3 sentences. Right. I remember one was, hey, we've got, this was to Steve Burke. Hey, we've got, Fast and Furious as our biggest franchise. Why don't we have a Fast and Furious ride at Universal Theme Park? That's it. Okay. And about 2.5 years later, that's what we had at Universal Theme Parks.
Nice.
And I,
Wow.
you know, and I basically said, look, there's dull times where, traffic is light at the theme parks and you need to drive people in. If you do this fast, when we talked afterwards, after you wanted to hear more, I said, during those down times, if you have a Fast and Furious ride, you bring in Dwayne Johnson, you bring in Vin Diesel, you bring in some of those people to drive attendance. And, it's that sort of thing, but make it short and sweet, because these guys, they don't have time.
Right.
I remember when I come into Vince Manzi with a deck, he'd grab it and throw it on his table and go, "What's in it?"
Right.
Exactly. I'm not reading through that.
There was no way he was going to read it. First time I went to pitch something to Steve Burke, I was walking in with my deck, and one of his assistants said, "What's that?" And I said, "That's my deck." He hates decks.
Wow.
And if she hadn't told me that, I would have gone in and already been dismissed.
Right.
Because he did, he just wants to hear it. And most people on pitches, don't bury the lead. Give me the headline. What is it? And then if I want to know more, I'll ask you and you can tell me more. But don't start back end first and then try to lead me all the way to the payoff. Start with the payoff. And the other thing I say on a pitch is never go in with one. So if you finally get time with the CEO or the general manager or whoever it is, and that time is hard to come by, then you better have a handful of pitches in your pocket, because if the first one you throw out and they go, "Nah, I don't like that." Now what do? You tap dance out of the room. Well, or you, the big hook comes out and
Exactly.
the trap door opens. But I always have extra pitches in my pocket, things that I wanted to pitch them anyway, and maybe they'll like one of those. And the other thing about pitching, Eddie, is never be married to your idea. It's just an idea. Right. So if I pitch you an idea and you don't like it, I'll bring you 5 more. You don't like those, I'll bring you 10 more. I'm going to keep bringing you pitches until you find something you like. And on any of those, I'm not married to them. If you don't like it, I'll put it in my pocket and save it for later, because there may be a time that comes up where that pitch is needed. But what happens is people look at their pitch as, this is the essence of who I am as a human being. And if you reject my pitch, you're rejecting me. And then they get all belligerent and stuff and tell you why you're wrong about rejecting the pitch. And I don't think that's a good way to get somebody to say yes.
I don't think so either. That's not a good idea.
So what you do is you just let it go. Let it go. You may end up and never throw away an idea ever. I have reams of ideas on everything, and you just never know when somebody's going to say, "Hey, we got a meeting at 2:00 on the blah blah blah." I've got a whole page of those ideas, and you just pull your page out and you go in there. So, but never get married to your ideas. There's a thing that I do, John Miller taught me at NBC, was a 2-no rule. And basically you go into your boss, you pitch this thing and they go, "I don't know." She's like, "I don't know if I like that." And then, so you go back and you rework it and you do all your stuff and you bring it in again. And she goes, "Nah, I don't think so." After that, you're done. You're done. Stop pitching that, because after that, you're being insubordinate. You're not listening to me. You're not hearing me. How many times do I have to tell you no? Blah, 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 blah. So the 2-no rules, you get 2 no's, put it in your pocket, save it for another time. You don't know what's going on in their part of the company at any given time, and what you're pitching may not be a priority. So before I do any pitches, I do my homework. And, I go through my folks and find out what is the thing that's on that person's desk that they need solved.
Wow.
And that's what
How do you do that?
You talk to their executive assistant, you talk to people who work with them, you talk to, you talk to people that are on the team, and you're just having lunch, So what are you guys working on? What do you have problems with? "Oh, well, we're trying to solve this thing with the blah, 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 and the blah, blah, blah." I go back to my desk and come up with 5 ideas how to solve that. Nice. So when I walk in, here's the one thing I tell everybody. Your job when somebody's paying you money is to make them look heroic.
Mhm.
Whatever you have to do to make them look heroic. So you have to know what makes that person heroic in the eyes of their own bosses.
Wow.
So is it bringing in more revenue? Is it winning awards? Is it what? I don't care what it is, but once you figure that out, that's how you pitch.
So let's say somebody's watching this video and they see our three names, and obviously you're the expert here, so they see your name. If they friend you and link you up on LinkedIn, how do they get your attention? Is it just hi, how are you? Like,
No.
to link somebody's one way, but then how do you actually develop a relationship?
When you're talking either at a cocktail party or on LinkedIn or wherever, you need to say something smart and interesting, because I go to a function and I get 100 cards.
Right, sure.
But every now and then I have an interesting conversation with somebody. And so on that card, you should write on the back, we talked about the blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was interested in that, so I may call you back. But if you just call me to say hello, hi, how are you? I don't have time for that. I don't have time for 100 people to do that to me. And so there's nothing going on. The best thing that I always do is I listen to somebody talk, and then I come back the next time with a question for them. So you talked about doing the thing with the satellites and the light. I want to do something similar, but I'm not sure if I do it this way, whether it's going to work, or should I look at it that way? All of a sudden, I become Yoda, and everybody wants to be Yoda, especially all of us old people in the business. We want to be the Yoda. We want to have the little, walk around with the little cane. And so if you start asking us questions about that, we'll probably engage with you. But if you start asking me questions, I need a job with the blah, 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 that's not my job.
You've shared incredibly valuable information. Your stories are just also such great reminders of not only just the concept of saying yes, but the concept of being aware. Be aware of what opportunities are presenting themselves to you that you might have blinders to, because you think this is my path, this is where I'm going. And not just for people who are, looking to have full on careers in the media, but people who want to be a part of the media. They want to be interviewed on the news. They want to be someone that's a go-to expert. Is your path is only built with your own vision. And sometimes that stopping and looking around or listening or hearing what other people are trying to tell you will be the most valuable experience, because it may show you a different path that you never envisioned.
Absolutely. And when you're talking to somebody, my rule is, particularly when I send producers out and other people to set up things, do more listening than talking. Mm-hmm. Because that way we're going to find out what's in that person's head, which direction we should go, all that stuff. But if you're just doing this verbal tsunami, you have no idea what's going on in that person's head, particularly if it's somebody you're trying to link up with and learn a way to get into their company, and they will tell you if you just listen, and understand what they're saying, you'll get there. But if you think, man, I have to fill this dead space, you learn nothing. And me on the other side is, I needed a food shield because you're spitting on me. So a lot of people think, you got to win Emmys and you got to do all of this stuff to be successful. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Remember, when you're on a project, it's like a boat going through the water. And at the top of the destination is to do the best job you can. That's the number one goal that boat's going through. And in the wake of the boat will come money, promotions, awards. All of that stuff happens in the wake because you're doing really good work. But when you veer off for awards, or you veer off for money, or you veer off for whatever it is that's not about doing the good job, about a position you really want and that stuff, it's going to be self-failure, because you're no longer focused on doing the best job. You're focused on getting that chair or getting that promotion. And that's a lot of what people forget, and you don't have to I'm a mountain climber, and half the time we never get to the top. So it's not about getting to the top. It was about spending a week with some of my best friends having an adventure. And if we get to the top, we're going to be there for 5 minutes. It took us like 4 days to get there, and 5 minutes, we can't breathe. We got to get down. So the top is not the goal. It's the journey, and all of the people you meet on that journey. And even if you start at zero and you get to 60% or 70% on that project, look where you got. You started at zero. You don't have to get to 100% on anything, and that's another place where people fail, because they think if they don't hit 100%, if they don't win an Emmy, if they don't do this, they failed. They didn't.
The people that are watching this video and all these interviews are trying to be on air. They're trying to be experts and guests. So what I just got out of what you just said, if you get on a local news show or a local show, well, that's
Doesn't
great.
matter. Yeah,
you don't have to be on Good Morning America. You don't have to be on. Just be where you are and do the best you can, and things will happen when they're supposed to happen.
And you don't have to do it even on broadcast TV. Do it on YouTube. Do it on Instagram. When I have young people say, I want to be in NBC News, I said, let me see some of your stories. Well, I want to get in the news department and I can make some. Do you have an iPhone?
Right.
Sure. Exactly. Start making your own news.
It is a television studio. Go interview something that you know. If you really know college volleyball, then go do a piece on it. But nobody's holding these days. There is no barrier to taking off. At NBC, we had teams of people just scouring YouTube and all these other places looking for storytellers, because at the end of the day, everything we do, no matter what media, in print, radio, television, streaming, whatever it is storytelling. Promos, commercials, storytelling. Everything is about storytelling. So if you want to get my attention, show me that you can tell a story. That's all. I don't care what the quality of it looks like or any of that stuff. I just want to know that you can tell a story. And if you can, I'll give you all the equipment that'll make that shine and spiff it up and put a lacquer on it. But at the base, if you're not a storyteller and you're not good at it, and you do all of the kind of superficial stuff around it, I don't want you. I need a story like the anecdotes that I've been telling you guys. It kind of breaks through the glass. It touches you either at your heart level or your head level. And those are the two places where you can touch people. And if you can do both, great. If you do neither, it's a waste of time. It's a wave that just went over your head. So I tell people storytelling. Tell some stories. If you want to be in this business, if you want to be an anchor, you want to be a television presenter, you want to do whatever it is you want to do, start telling some stories. If you're just going to read off a prompter, I can get 100 people to do that.
Wow. Good advice.
I could talk to you all day. I am very honored.
Well, listen, I'll do whatever you guys need. Any friends of Eddie's is a friend of mine, and whatever your group needs, whenever you do. I teach a bunch of classes. I teach a class called Maximum Creative on how to make yourself more creative, how to make your team more creative, how to monetize creativity, how to pitch. I teach a pitching class. I teach a class on networking, because almost everybody doesn't know how to do that. Everybody walks around and passes out cards and says, I did a ton of networking. No, you didn't. You passed out a bunch of cards. So yeah, I do a whole bunch of different things if you need them. And for you guys, I remember the Maximum Creative. I used to do it for General Electric's Crotonville Leadership School, where they brought in all their leaders from around the world. And that cost $5,000 a session. But for you guys, free.
I love it. Well, thank you. It has been, we are going to promote you as much as possible with this as well. And we'll keep you posted on everything we're doing with this, but this was just incredibly valuable information.
Well, I think what you're doing is incredibly important. Our business, I used to tell the young people that I'm standing on your shoulders now. When you first came in, you were standing on mine, but now you're the base, you're the foundation of what we do going forward. And for me to participate in that, I actually need to stand on your shoulders because you know more about it than I do. And so bringing people in, helping them grow is the thing that keeps our business vibrant and sound. If we don't reach out to others and we don't help them, I believe none of us got here by ourselves. We all had people who believed in us, reached out, and guided us. And I think, in the Army, we had a saying, no one gets left behind.
Right.
And I think in this business, the same thing works. We don't leave people behind.
Amen.
It's interesting what you said about helping others, and then when you're talking about business cards, and if you just hand out a bunch of business cards, you're not really making connections. Through my years, I mean, I'm 62 years old, and I've been a stage manager for 35 years. And I had opportunities to do different things, but I didn't take them because I wanted to be home. I get out at 11 o'clock in the morning and I'm home and I'm there for my family. But I did hand out a lot of business cards, and I didn't hand out the business cards for myself. I handed them out to make friends and connections. And I said, on my LinkedIn page, and Eddie has been honored and blessed to work with many of the best in all business so he could help others. And I met you, and now you're doing this and you're helping others. And same thing with Michael. Michael and I, we had lunch together, and she has her business, Shock Your Potential. And she said, I'm thinking about Shock Your Media Potential. I said, well, I work in the media. I know a lot of people. Let me help you. And all I thought I was going to do was connect her with different people. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you're going to be doing the interviews with me. I said, what? But it's like, okay, let's do it. Like you said, say yes. You don't know what the opportunities are, and you don't know how you're helping people and touching people's lives. And I appreciate you and everything that you said and taking the time. And you're just absolutely fabulous, not only as a person, but obviously career-wise and everything you've done. So thank you very much.
I'll leave you with one thing that you guys are instinctively doing correctly. When I first got into the military, and in basic training, they shaved our heads and gave us the same clothes and everything. And I walked out onto this little landing after the haircut, and I looked out, and there was like 2,000 guys looked exactly the same. And I yelled out, hey, you in the green. And everybody turned around. And I said immediately, I'm not going to be any of those guys. I got to figure out a way to stand out if I'm, if I want to get ahead here. And so I had these glasses that were those transition lenses, but it was early in it, so they would transition dark and never come back. And so what ended up happening was they give me these Buddy Holly glasses, and I break them on purpose. And after the third time, they said, we're not giving you any more glasses. You gotta wear your own. So if you look at any picture of me in the military, from basic training through my military career, I'm the only guy wearing sunglasses all the time.
That is awesome.
And so if they needed to find me, they'd say, oh, it's the guy in the sunglasses. You know that guy, the black guy in the sunglasses.
Wow.
And so I stood out. You guys are automatically doing that with your hair, Michael, with your glasses on your forehead. That's your signature. These are what makes you stand out in a crowd. And I don't know if you knew, Eddie, but I have 200 pair of cowboy boots. And so at NBC, I was always wearing cowboy boots. And so if I was in a meeting, I said something smart and they didn't know who I was, somebody would go, oh, it's some black guy in cowboy boots. And somebody at NBC knew who I was. So having your own trademark, your own identifier is really, really important when you're in a herd.
Yeah.
And when you go into a big business, you're in the herd. So you've got to figure out a way to separate yourself from the rest of the herd. Both of you guys have done that, and I did that with with my cowboy boots.
I love it. Hey, you in the green shirt.
You're funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. You know, I immediately said, I don't want to be any of those guys.
Love it. Oh, Val, thank you so much. I am so grateful. I've had a great time. My face hurts from smiling and laughing. That means it's been a great, great event. Thank you so much. And we'll keep you posted on where we're going with this and all the other details. It's been a pleasure.